The reason the organization here of my mother is very important because of genetics, because of what also that's going on down the line with my mother most likely is going to happen to me. So
Cutting it off at the pass, are you?
the more I can understand the source, which most people look at as schooling, but our true source is really our parents. So the whole lesson with today, I'm going after the organization of the skull in relationship to C1. Now, when I say that, I obviously am going to be affecting the rest of the spine, the shoulder, her pinky, all of the system will be affected, but that's going to be my concentration today with the face, is around how it presents to the top of the spine. So all I've been doing here is going underneath the mastoid process, so that's where my hand is. I'm cupping underneath, and as everyone knows, the whole back of the skull is completely individual for each person. Some people are flatter in the back, longer, wider. Some people have a very deep skull, so it brings the skull up. So the propping is important. I don't know. This is where I probably should have more variations with foam. But if I bring her down all the way, and I'm just going to show you for the sake of showing you, but, oh, she's a bit better now. She seemed a little bit low before, but I still think if she was just here, just that quarter of an inch, here, let me try this. See if I can get creative with my towels. Can you lift your head up, Mom? Down. Is that better?
Yeah.
So, and of course the other thing too that I've noticed is she has a shorter width on the right side than she does on the left. So the head's just a tad tilted off to the side. But again, I'm not going to be concerned. So this would be to fix her per se. And I think it would probably, does it feel awkward to you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So-
I understand that.
So you just don't, however they lay down on my table, I go for it. I will ask people to say, go on your left side, right side, but if I say go on the right side and it's their left, or if I say go on your back and they pick their, I go for it. I don't correct. If that's where their organization is saying, okay, Michelle, let's go, okey doke. That's where I just say to myself, I'm just tired help, and that's what I'm doing. So this whole time that I've been talking, all I've been doing is going underneath and just lightly touching and a light lift into the C1. So basically, A, to bring awareness to that area, and B, you'll see it very beautifully with C7 and particularly, or anywhere in the body. Like this would just, my girth alone would affect the shoulder, for the shoulders to say, oh, Michelle's gonna hold me, I don't have to do it anymore, and let go. I'm basically doing that with the back of the skull. But why I'm doing that, I'm still lightly more so with the palms. I'm doing a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left.
So you're lifting with your fingers and
Right.
torquing with your palms.
So I'm just lifting with, the fingers and just, working on that torque. Again, I'm not doing a left to right rotation. I'm doing a little bit, so I'm elongating, stretching out all the way through the side of the skull. Same thing, you can see it here. So it's that kind of, I'm being over dramatic at this point, but. And I can tell by just the heaviness of their head, to lift with my fingers right now, to get the head to lift up off the table is just, it's not happening. Now, don't get me wrong, I can come up here very nicely and scoop her and bring her up, but I'm still looking for that tonus change, that relationship to gravity to change, so the head becomes more where it's off the skull and off the spine. I shouldn't say off the skull, but where it's off the spine, so it flips up. I see it with the feet as I do with the skull, that kick. I should be able to touch the back of a heel and almost get where you can see that kick coming through. And obviously, if someone's system is just way too heavy in organization, it's just gone south. There's no the lift isn't present here even in lying down, so to get her to sit up right now would be effort.
Yeah.
She can do it, but it'd be effort. So now I'm going in just way back into the I'm barely touching the jawbone, the mandible, but my thing is here is more so for the torque around the skull itself.
So are you,
So it's just like
but are you not putting pressure on your thumbs one way or
very,
the other?
again, I'm just trying to work on the movement more so than a quote pressure point. So the way my index finger is touching her skull is the exact same as how my thumb is. There's no, I mean, I'm not using any of my fingers as a vice. I'm going for a ride as much as possible. And you can already see now with this, okay, so she kinks here, so the movement to the left is much nicer. So with that, I'm going to work a little bit to the left. So now that I have a movement pattern that I'm liking at the moment, that she's doing naturally, now I'm going back, even though my thumbs are here, my attention is back to C1. So what it is as the head is off to the side and coming back down, this is where I'm applying a little bit of pressure, more so C1, and see how the head comes basically back off to the onto the spine in this position. So there's a little bit of effort right at the end. So to me, it's very similar to work with a foot and lying down. In lying down, that foot should be very easily to go in a 90-degree angle, but I'd say, a lot of people have difficulty with that. And if they have difficulty going a 90-degree angle and lying down, then they really have, they're putting undue pressure onto the glutes or whatever parts of the system when the foot does present to the floor. So the same thing, if I'm coming over here and this is effort right here to get the skull onto the spine, so that's what makes me go, So again, I'm just going into different areas of C1. By the way, Mom, are you comfortable? Mm-hmm. Okay. You can fall asleep, it still works. So you can really see where that effort takes place, and it's the bend of the rest of the neck area. I don't like to say neck because it's still the spine, but still. So what I'm doing here now is I'm pushing into C1. And again, when I say C1, if it's C1, C2, it's in that approximate area. If people have shorter neck, you're going to have to deal with it. If people have long necks, I dealt with this violinist. Oh my gosh, I would have paid her to do lessons on her because her neck literally went like to here. I mean, it was just gorgeous. And it's just not an experience that most of us get to play with. However, I can understand her back issues because with that long of a neck to hit the chin of the violin, she almost needs lifts. You know what I mean? So.
So in working with the right side, you're helping the left side.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we learn from good from bad, just like when we like to go out to eat and we go, oh, this meal was really good, or this meal's really, that's how we learn. So if I go with the more efficient side, hopefully your other side's going to say, hey, I want to do that too, because now you realize how nice it is over here. So I feel a difference when I come to
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't hurt, but you can feel it.
Well, yeah,
Difference,
no,
yeah.
yeah. So now what I'm doing here is I'm going in, okay, I'll do it from both sides just so you see. I like to just stick with one side, but I'm applying the pressure right in here. And again, it looks like it's a lot of pressure, it's not. But then I'm off the top of the head and I'm looking just to see if there's any kind of tension in the neck. So you'll feel that extension. So I'm actually asking the system to bow curve from here to here with the influence here. And it's a real nice, subtle move.
So the ribs, should the ribs be?
Well, the ribs are gonna get affected, but actually what I'm looking for is the face to actually start to breathe, that extension through the skull. And it's just, again, something that doesn't get played with that often. I had a client yesterday, and she does barrels with the horses, and boy, she just got her head worked on, and she's like, oh my gosh, am I gonna be, what she goes home and she looks to see if the horse notices a difference from her lessons with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a perfect example of, quote, energy. And I'm not talking energy woo-woo stuff, I'm talking about energy of movement. And you really can see it when people, quote, ride an animal or walk with a dog, that if you have glitches in your system, feel the difference on this side to do the extension, Mom?
Mm-hmm.
You feel the, much more tightness in the cavity, and especially up around the head. Feel the difference, how much nicer that feels going to this shoulder.
Yeah, there's a set of CDs, a writing set of CDs from Feldy in Maryland. That's all she does is horse and rider, I think.
But I mean, just in general, how people, you can look at, even if you're surfing, if you don't move well, that the movement of the ocean is going to hit that board like a wall versus you going for a ride on that wave.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
and most people are stiffer than the board that they're riding on when they're trying to do it in the first place. And also too, notice now, I'm just now starting to get that lift. Look at the change in the diaphragm even as I can pull up. See your pelvis now tilting. All of this is already riding up just off of the head. Now again, this is where a lot of people will be like, oh look, you can go left, right, everything looks good. I'm on to the next step. My point is, I'm very fortunate that I have some wonderful clients like yourself and whatever that come to me much more regularly and can get the detailed work. And that's what I think I'm getting quite proficient at, as they say. But so what I'm doing now, and this is a really interesting move. So my fingers are almost like in a line, but they're going still off to the right side of C1 into the middle of the back of the skull. So we will have that divot in between the mastoid process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a very technical name for it, but right now it's a divot.
Okay.
So, and then what I'm doing is I'm placing my hand on the top of the skull. And again, I'm not doing right, left, right, left. It's almost as like if this was a jar of mayonnaise and I'm looking to just unscrew the cap. And also my heel is against probably the back of the ear. So see how I'm looking to twist. So it's very subtle, as if her eyes were to travel up over to the corner of the room. And just to show you the difference, because I haven't worked on this side. Feel that, Mom? I can hardly get anything. There we go. So the whole head is rolling over to the side. You can see the difference in the mass of even the nasal cavity versus on this side. See, the whole head does not know how to roll over C1. And again, I'm not saying she's not capable, she is, but I'm just talking, again, the efficiency of the movement. So now what I'm doing is since she's getting easier, I'm changing my hands, how I'm in the base of her skull, down the side of her neck, to change the vantage points of the movement. And again, this is now. So now I'm just going to go back to the first movements. And also too, you can see how much the acceleration's changed in the top of the face even. So she's much quicker. Still to the right. She's a little bit of a staccato. To the left, it's a much smoother. That's to the right. So now I'm gonna go to the side of C1, and my palms are on the top of the head, or it's as far as my palms will go. You might have to adjust it if you're a big old boy working on a munchkin. And what I'm doing is I'm pressing onto the sides, but I'm looking to see when the extension happens through the head. So I'm not looking necessarily for the neck to go side by side. Again, I'm going for the extension through the head. It can be a hard thing to learn because most people go, well, that doesn't happen. Well, yes, it does. Look at the difference here versus this side. And if you only want to work to one side, again, too, when I'm doing these things, how your person presents on the table, go for it. These are just suggestions. I could right now work on my mother 50,000 different ways. This is just one way. You know, this is just a moment in time at this moment. And who knows, 2 years from now, I might say, what was I thinking? Or I should have done this. Most of the times I go, oh, wow, that was cool, but I should have done that. So now you can see where I'm on the side of C1, C2, C3, and just working on the speed. Again, look at the difference. See, she just doesn't have the smoothness. That's fine. But notice too, as I work maybe to this side, that I'm still concentrating on this side, partially for the camera and partially because that's just where she was easiest. Like right when I'm doing that, I'm working on this side of the head. So even though her chin is going off to the side, here to the right, my concentration again is this side of the head. So again, you can see the difference. It's not there. So now I'm going to go for a little bit of a lift. First of all, just hanging out, waiting for her system to say, oh, Michelle's got my head. And it's happening quite quickly because she's already into the lesson. So now I'm just right underneath that quote divot. I've got my pointer fingers on each the base of the mastoid process, and so the other fingers are just joining to the center of the base of the skull. But my concentration now is still C1. Not so much, it looks like I'm doing pecking. This would be pecking.
Okay.
What I'm looking for is I'm actually going in there, and it's like a light stretch, and then coming back in. So I'm applying a little bit of pressure into C1, and it's a little bit of pull because it's a neat play. Because again, see, this is movement of the neck. Now this still functions C1, I get that, but see the difference? So I'm actually starting to pull the head off the spine in various ways. You're comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So now look here how I can pull. And watch this. It's a very subtle rotation going up. And coming. Now I'm pulling on the head, pulling on the head, pulling the whole time. But I'm working on this rotation. Are you seeing it?
Mm-hmm.
I would let go. So the whole rotation was through the skull going. So I'm not doing this, where it would be more of a peck. And at this point, I'm going to take this out and see if it makes. I think that's fine.
So if you were going to initiate that movement yourself, instead, like in a ATM, instead of thinking about your chin and moving it forward, you'd more be thinking about the back of your head?
No, what I'm thinking about is how the skull sits on C1. So what I'm looking for is how to rotate the whole skull over the base of the spine.
Okay.
And most people only do, like ATMs, I'm rolling my head to the right, I'm rolling my head to, but that's just a very limited variation onto. Now, yes, there's other ATMs where you can look up and then come back down. But again, then it's to the eyes. Then it's to, I just change my vantage point to how all those work around the top of the way the skull presents to the spine. That's what's interesting, I think, about ATMs and aren't played with as much. That's great when it says push through the heel, push through the heel. But what, if you said, okay, think of the patella the way it goes down, in relationship to the femur as you push through the heel. So, I mean, you can take now an APTM and make it complex to the nth degree by your vantage point and how you're going to approach it. So that's the only thing I'm doing too with this lesson. Again, I can do the whole pecking thing. But then on that, I would have to organize more. In her, I feel through the scapula. I would change the lesson for her vantage point. So now what I'm going to do it in relationship again to C1 is start working with the ears. So what I'm doing here,
It's my husband's favorite part.
it's because he's part dog.
He likes it.
So I'm pulling up just like this. I'm just like this. So I'm pulling up on the right side, but when I say pulling up, what I'm really trying to do is almost like if the tonus or if there was a string or elastic band that took the ear over to the shoulder. And right now I'm just trying to hook up the ears. Hook up, which I mean, like when I'm working on the ear here, I can feel her whole ear canal and almost like to the center of her head. And I'm probably speaking for my mother, but this part feels really good. Right? Does it feel
Mhm.
good? And now, as the head's going over, you can really see the torque. So I'm literally like this. So it's almost like if there was a dish towel in between the ears. I'm just wringing it out. The only thing is with that kind of visualization, you think much more. You wouldn't wring the dish towel out with your thumb, and And again, you can see where the acceleration changes. So if I were to do the other side, you can just see that it's not the same. So now that I've got the connection going through the left, I'm going back, concentrating again at the top of the spine. So instead of, even though it looks like I'm bringing the ear to the shoulder, I'm very consciously thinking of how the head is rotating over the top of the spine. And I have to bring it back. I'm bringing it back maybe more so with the palm heel than I am with my fingers. And as my fingers in the back here, like this, where I'm pulling, I can feel too how the skull's doing that same extension through there. I mean, there's a lot of information feedback that I get from 10 fingers. You can see it on this side, how I'm feeling how the skull's responding as well. But if you're thinking I'm just doing this to twist the earlobes, you're missing the point. So now I can go back in there and see. It's much nicer. Look at the subtlety now that you're getting with the freedom of the whole skull off the top of the head. And again, this would be a pecking. And pecking's fine, but the reason I just don't do it that much, because it's just up, down, again, more of a peck to me would be a twist in here and like a pull and going up. I think it facilitates much more of the head in relationship to the twist of the chest cavity. Because here, I mean, you're not, and this is where kids have eating problems, just that they're just like this, versus that they can twist and do all of that. And now too, I'm just gonna go back to feeling, see, I haven't, now I'm coming back where the chin's coming back towards the left pelvis versus going to the right. There we go. And two, when I do something like this, now her skull is rotating on my fingers, but it's doing it in such a way, you can see how that the head now naturally lifts to go over my fingers and my hand. See how it just rolls right onto my hand? So I can have it this way. Look at the difference. See the difference? I mean, this is just brilliant for, like I said, horseback riding and golfing and all of this, but it's also, this is driving a car. This is, and it's also, I really feel what people don't look at in regards to aging and Alzheimer's. Because I can tell you, a person with Alzheimer, the acceleration and the rate of movement through the head alone is very delayed, very traumatized. You're not going to get a nice boop, 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 boop. Now again, I haven't worked on the other side, so if I go over here, just look at the difference. Here, look at the difference. But see, I can throw her nose here. Do you see the difference at its base of, or here? Don't worry about Mom, I'm going to leave you lopsided. I love you too much. That and I'm going away for too long. So here I'm just, again, fingers around the base of the skull into the C1, and I'm just applying a little bit of pressure up through the top, in between the clavicles and the scapulas, just to apply pressure and stop the movement so I can get the extension off the neck. So I'm not pushing down as I'm pulling away. I'm just here to say, you know, just stabilize while I just work one. There we go. And as always, and see now the head just lifts so much naturally, I'm just kind of going back here. I can go back just to the original movement. And even though I say all the time I go back to the original movement, it's not the original movement because she's different. But here again, you can just see the nice, I still can't get past this one spot on the right versus here on the left. And even now, look at how she's just, I can pull through the diaphragm, all of that. So now what I'm going to do here, more through side through the left, and then I'm just about done on this side, and I'm going to transfer over. It's, now, a lot of people push through the skull just through the top, like that, just to show placement of the head. I get that, but what I'm doing here, again, is more of the torque. So I'm through the top part of the skull. And again, it's just like if I was just lightly pushing down and a light twist. So I'm still trying to stay consistent down the base of the spine. And notice the pressure is probably much more through part of my hand. But I have to do it slow enough because I've got 10 fingers on her skull and I'm looking to see where there could be issues. And what this is when did the top of the skull fuse on that person? When did the soft spot end? When did the... all of those things in the head. So there we go. So now I have a nice connection to just where the top of the skull is. And you can feel that rotation that goes through. Now again, if I did it more here, and I'm just going to go more towards the right. See the difference in the rotation? Versus just, again, concentrating, so that means I'm just more, my head's over my left knee, going down through, and it's just a different ease going through the top of her C1. And what I do is I just move I counterbalance. As my head goes over to the right, her head's going over to the left, and vice versa. I always say working on a body is a lot like shooting pool. The only thing is, I should be really good at shooting pool, and I suck. Probably because it's too fixed. So So now you can see. And again. See how I can just really just throw her head? Now I'm going to switch sides. Are you comfortable on your back if I go?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just checking. I think on this one, I'm gonna leave the camera on this side versus, you know, so you can see opposing ideas. So now I'm gonna look again at the quality of the left versus the right. So I find it here. Now, I did not do this at all on the other side, but in this case, I'm just gonna give her a little bit of, I would like your participation here. Touch. Now, there we go. Her sternum really sank, so I'm just gonna go for it. Wasn't planning on it, so, but I'm there, so why not?
What do you mean it sank?
Just feel how much I can just push down in your sternum and it moves. Considering you broke yours, this is really good for you. And now you can see the quickness down the chest. So that should make a big difference going to the right. And if it doesn't, then I have to try something else. But see already now, look at that.
How'd you do that?
And see, you need now the difference too on the left.
All that from pressing on the chest?
Yeah.
Wow. Excuse me.
That's okay. It's just stuff coming out. Again, this is where a lot of people go, oh, okay, it's organized both sides. I'm done. I still love this move. Again, so we did it from this side. I pushed through here and you can look at it that I'm pulling through the top of the skull, but it really, you gotta be on tandem with this. So as I'm pushing in, so I'm doing that rotation through the head. So as I'm pushing in through the base of the skull into C1, and you can see this is where she's like, I have no idea what you want from me. That's fine. So I'm applying just that bit of pressure, and now I'm just gonna release. And I'm gonna move my hand just a little bit for the variation, just the fingers on the left side. Again, this too is where you need short nails, because otherwise those suckers are going into someone's neck. So now you'll start to feel where it's almost, instead of that I'm pushing in this way, it's a lift, the roll. So now I'm gonna go almost like I did with the chest, down the base of her skull. There we go, saying I'd like your participation. And that's so now I'm keeping my left hand still and I'm moving my right hand. I could stay there forever. I'm going to assist it a little bit. I'm going to cup underneath here. That's much nicer. Here meaning the mastering process. And then back to the original movement. So now here, look at the difference in pecking, if you're gonna go for a peck. But I'm gonna go back to where I'm pulling So it's almost, if I could, a tug of war pool. I'm really looking at my own inflection, my own internal rotation, bringing her head down. Again, it's something you really need to play with, because also to see how the head now. I'll slow it down. So rotation of the C1. Now you can see where the upper chest cavity is so much nicer. And the rotation coming back down. So what this is doing too is, see the force is coming through and it rotates through the diaphragm and it comes up through the top part of the chest, even though I am affecting the spine. And then the rotation now, and that you can see where I'm going more on the angle of the spine so the chest can soften up. So what I'm doing here by pulling is, see when I pull up in the back, I'm expecting the spine to go up, so my chest has to soften, right? So I'm doing this in a sense. And this, a lot of us, we do it in standing working on people. So then as I'm pulling through, and rotating up through the C1, see now it's like my chest cavity has to, as I pull, will rise and my back will go down. So I'm working on that wishing well kind of function. Does that make more sense?
Mhm.
And again, if you can see with my counter, look at how I counter. My left knee goes down, I'm bringing her head over to the left. As I'm bringing her over, watch my knees. My right knee goes down, my left knee goes up, so I can take, I'm not sitting here like this, doing this. It's a completely different movement. As I move and I'm tipping over to my right sit bone, tipping over to my left sit bone, left knee goes down, right knee up, right butt up. Rotating over, so it's like we're all in a big boat. Riding that wave, however you want to look at it. So here what I'm doing now is again, my fingers are all at the base of the skull to C1, and I'm rotating. So I'm pulling up through the back of the left side and rotating down to the right. And then I come back up here. So this is my big Google move, that infinity. You see a lot, if you look at the one video, especially working on the wrist, you can see when I do that with the ulnar radius and stuff in relationship to the wrist. But look at how she's learning how to shift to her. Now, speaking of shifting, if I wanted to make this more of it into the system, at this point now I can ask her to press through to the right foot. And as she takes it, ask her to, I'm not going to have her do it now because I'm just doing with this. But also what she's doing, look at the infancy of this movement. She's just a little baby reacting to stimuli. And that head, all her neck muscles are just non-functional at this moment. How's that feel?
Wonderful.
I'm resting it for 1 second, and I'm gonna do the same movement again.
That felt good.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it again. I'm just letting you reorganize. So does that make sense? So I'm just
It
here,
does. Mhm.
and I'm rotating down, but to the shoulder and to the shoulder.
Yeah, the figure 8 thing, that makes sense.
And again, I'm not sitting here whipping her head around. Okay, now here, this is nice. I can notice when I do this, I can now bring the back of her skull over to the shoulder area. So it's already a different movement. See how she's like swiping the table now? So
Mhm.
before what I was doing is just this. And it's
Mhm.
more neck based and the lower jaw and the skull, but now I can really incorporate her head left and right if I wanted to. And let me tell you, for 76, she's got a nice neck.
Mhm.
You
Good
do?
for her.
You do. So now feel how I can just do the knees, and I can bring the movement much more into the face. right there. So this is where I can fine tune. So I'm twisting through my left hand as I'm allowing gravity or the weight of my right hand affect the whole nasal cavity, sinus cavities up on the top, temple, and the jaw. So most of my influence of my movement is my left hand as I, again, that twist. But I'm allowing the right hand to be gravity. There she goes. Now this. See, there's something in the face here that the neck and the back was going, yeah, but my face is gonna fall. And it sounds really whatever, but this is just, goes back to developmental movements. So now with that, I can go back to, again, this movement again. And see if it's any different. Now, if you want to really see my mom, it's this. There's nothing to do with the method, but that's my...
She probably likes that little tiny hair pool thing too.
But, so now I'm going to do it on this side. So again, I'm just using my hand as weight, but the movement right now is through my right hand twisting. See, if I just did this, it's a completely different movement. So if I bring this here, so I'm not necessarily pushing down, it's just the weight of my hand is enough to help this movement go around the spine.
So what are you doing with your thumb? Is there pressure there?
It's pressure, but it's just, it's really as if I was just laying my hand on her.
Okay.
But this hand is that twist. So this hand is doing the movement. I'm just allowing the weight of my system and also limit the move so that her head turns more on its axis versus something like this where it's going to turn or go off axis. And again, this move's fine too. I'm just talking about this in particular is what I'm doing. See how it's the movement has to stay tighter. But people think that I'm doing this kind of thing with this hand. I'm not. This hand is just lying on her face. And also to create a different level of awareness. And my 4 fingers here are doing most of the work. Ah, there we go. There we go. So look at the extension now that goes through the right side of the head. So now I'm going to go back to this movement again. And she should continually notice a difference. And again, what I like about the infinity, the Google, or whatever you're looking at is because you're covering all the bases and you're looking. I mean, I know that the clock is interesting, but the clock is still just very, to me, linear, whereas this is going in and out. And it's not a brain gym kind of thing, because that's still left brain, right brain. I'm actually trying to work, in a sense, infinity mathematics through the system at that moment. So if she went down to look at her shoes, down to look at her shoes, this, see, I can do this now in any type of circumstance. Bringing the ear up to this side, bringing it down.
That's amazing.
And it's you.
Yeah.
Most people too, if you did something like that in the beginning, your startle vestibular, you're really gonna really ruin the beauty of it. That's something like this. She's already been on the table now for probably a good 45 minutes, if not longer. Now I can take advantage of her. So see how she can twist. So now I'm going to go back to this move. So I'm going to pull the head. And then again, with the concentration on the rotation, now you should be able to really see how the chest cavity can free. back to this one. So again, instead of just applying, and this is fine, I could go in there and just apply pressure to let her know, but I'm going for that infinity. Okay, there we go. So again, this would just be left, right, but I'm going down and down to the right and to the left.
Boy, the skin really moves off the skull.
I know. There we go. Now the back muscles are going. Woo-hoo. So see, I'm doing that now through the top of the head, that infinity.
Didn't know I could do all this.
There. That's quickie.
That feels good.
Good. Did you learn enough? You can do it to me now. And look at two now, the weight of the head. Boop, boop, boop. Belly, knees,
Yeah.
all that,
Right,
the
right.
tissue's totally changing throughout our system. So now I'm going back to the ear. And I'm just gonna feel the top of C1. Oh, I didn't do the ear on this side, so I'm pulling down to the right. There's not even a pull anymore. So here's infinity through the ears. So I'm gonna pull. I'll do it from the other side. So I'm gonna pull on the ear as if there was a string going through just to the base of the skull and out where it attaches to C1. So this is from the left, and then again I'm moving over to the right as I pull through the right. So now I'm going to go back to the left and just start here. So I'm just pulling. Now if I wanted to, I can go back down around the mastoid process into the base of C1 and just connect it. And then I'm going to go back to the ear, and then you can see. There we go. So I'm pulling, but going to the base. So this, what's nice too, is that really gets all underneath the jaw. And by the way, if you don't think all of this would be nice for strokes or something like that, because again, what this is doing is just really putting that system back into more of a neutral, and again, a neutral reply to a stimuli. So now I'm on the right side. So I'm going to do the same thing and come down here. And go back to the, and now she's just, now this is pretty. It just feels good to me. Honestly, the tonus is almost like if I was just stirring something in a pot. I'm just watching stuff move around, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. Now, obviously, she's much more organized than that because she's attached, but literally it just feels as that kind of ease of movement. There's no, that I'm feeling at this moment. Look at how I can go underneath now and tuck the head. And now when I tuck, I'm right there with this little bit, that's C7. So I'm going right in here to C7, and there's a light pull here. There we go. See how I can just really, and I'm doing this quickly too because she had so much movement to the head. And you can see, I haven't worked on her shoulders, but how much the tonus has changed. But right now I'm just doing a quick integration. And with that, I'll quickly feel up her feet so she doesn't float away home.